You guys okay?
No, my guys.
Where's your car?
How you doing?
Okay, go to your car.
What's going on?
Chilling new images released by Metro Police Department showing images just before and after the Christmas morning bombing. This is video from Officer Michael Sidepost, body camera. He was one of the 6 officers working to get people out of the 2nd Avenue area before the bomb went off. Their efforts no doubt saved lives, which is not shocking to his former football coach.
I was not shocked when, my initial reaction was, that's Michael. He was doing his job. He was doing what he thought needed to be done, regardless of his own safety or his own, desires. He was putting others in front of himself.
This officer was one of 6 heroes from the Metro Police Department working to clear the area on Christmas morning. Alongside him were officers Brianna Hosey, James Lulin, Amanda Topping, James Wells, and Sergeant Timothy Miller.
Gives me chills every time I see that video, knowing what happened now, Nikki. Happening today, some business owners and residents on 2nd Avenue will be allowed to go back to their buildings. They can go in there, collect belongings, and assess the damage. It's going to be a very emotional day for those folks, no doubt. Elizabeth Lane is near the blast site this morning with more details on what's expected on this slow recovery.
Good morning, Neil. We spoke with one engineer who compared rebuilding 2nd Avenue to rebuilding the Taj Mahal. He says it's going to be very expensive and it's going to take quite some time. Many of these buildings are historic and the damage may be irreparable. Right now, we know Metro Police are working around the clock to shrink this crime scene down. We know the area won't be open to the public for quite some time. However, later today, about 20 business owners and some residents will be allowed to come survey the damage for the first time. It's certainly going to be an emotional experience.
They're getting pictures of the front of locations back to some of these owners. That way they have an idea going in if it might be, I need 4 or 5 pieces of plywood, or I'm going to need a contractor, or it might be that the building's being condemned. We're trying to give them as much of a head start of that as we can. That way they're not caught off guard with the severity of the damage they're dealing with.
The FBI's Victim Services is standing ready to assist. They've got help with counseling, filing claims, as well as helping people find another place to live. So we know business owners, as well as people who may have been displaced in this explosion, are eligible and encouraged to reach out for that assistance. Reporting live on Lower Broadway, Elizabeth Lane, News 2.
And just to piggyback off that, the Red Cross in Nashville is looking to help those who have been displaced from their homes. So far, they've opened up 23 cases for residents in the downtown hostel, as well as several apartment building residents. The number to call for help is 1-800-RED-CROSS. They have also set up disaster mental health and health services virtually for anyone in need right now, Nikki.
Well, the biggest question on the minds of most people this morning is why. This question will take investigators some time to answer. News 2 talked to the former FBI agent who worked on high-profile cases, including the Oklahoma City bombing. Julian Palazzo is joining us now with his insight on the investigation.
Well, despite knowing the suspect, there are many unanswered questions, which is why the majority of the crime scene is still closed off this morning. Metro school buses were brought in yesterday to further secure the perimeter in and around 2nd Avenue. Authorities were able to name Anthony Quinn Warner after receiving tips, processing DNA from the scene, and finding the VIN number of the RV. We spoke with retired FBI agent Barry Black, who says large vehicle attacks, not uncommon, but usually there's no warning. In this case, though, a computerized voice told residents to evacuate immediately. Major events like this take on a life of their own, and there are a number of things that investigators need to accomplish here.
The amount of information that needs to be processed immediately is fantastic. There's the crime scene itself, the physical evidence, but then analysts will also need to go through hours, sometimes hundreds of hours of videotape. With digital imagery, it's a lot easier to do now than before when we were using, say, VHS tapes.
And we know that a lot of business owners there have shared their surveillance video with us, so that is definitely going to be a part of the investigation as well, adding to the time here. Once all of the evidence is gathered, it will be processed at an emergency operations center in a separate location from the crime scene. And since the only suspect here is dead, finding a motive going to be very difficult. Neil.
Our neighbors say Warner just kept to himself. People who live on Bakertown Road in Antioch say he wasn't very social at all. They only saw him when he'd take out his trash or get his mail, and it was just a quick wave in most cases. Two neighbors add they also saw him pressure washing his driveway very often. From the back of Warner's house, you can see about a dozen security cameras that he had installed on his home and on his fence in the perimeter there, and lots of floodlights and something that resembles a radio tower that he was often seen working on. Neighbors say their kids used to play outside a few feet away from where the RV was parked, and they're thankful that it never exploded in the neighborhood.
We saw the FBI and the ATF and Metro Police surrounding the area, and I'm like, something's going on. And then I looked at the news and they said they had a person of interest, and I kind of looked at the picture they had of the RV, and I'm like, oh no, that's not gonna be good. And then I talked to my wife and I was like, that's him. She's like, no, it's not. I was like, yeah, that's him.
That is chilling. Federal agents searched Warner's home on Saturday. We saw the video of them coming out with evidence, but they have not said publicly what they have found just yet.
News 2 is working around the clock to bring you updated information about the Nashville bombing. You can find all of our past reports at WKRN.com. You can also download the News 2 app. It's free. It's in the App Store or the Google Play Store.